Okay, I'm removing the blower motor on a 2000 Chevrolet Astro. I've removed the coolant overflow tank and the water windshield washer tank by taking these two screws off, lifting the whole unit out, and then taking the hoses off here and the electrical plugs. I've pulled those off. Move this out of the way. What happens is these blower motors, I'm not sure if they're drawing too much current or what, but you can see where right here this goes to when you put the fan or blower on high. This is where the voltage line goes to your resistor pack, which I've also pulled out. It plugged in here down there, and I've taken the resistor pack out. I tested it, and the relay in that resistor pack is good, so the relay is still working. These things get hot because they're drawing a lot of current when that fan's on high, and you can see how it burned that connector up. My only reason for this is probably this is a 2000 model. This van is about 13 years old. Over time, these blower motors, when you're running on high, they're probably got a lot of could have some shorted windings, or the bearings on those motors are just getting harder to turn, which then causes it to pull more amperage and heats these connectors up probably hotter. If you want to remove this blower motor and replace it with the newer one, or I'm not sure if you can grease the bearings on this thing or not. On this model, my model, they encase it in some type of plastic housing, and it says on this housing, cut between ribs for blower motor service. So what I had to do was take a box cutter, similar to this one, and I had to cut best you can, if you can see this here, between these ribs here, all the way up around here, and all the way to the back side of the blower motor. Now it's hard to, I can't get my hand and the cutter back on that back side. So what you're doing, I did on the back side was I just took a big flatbed, one of these great big screwdrivers, and I just stuck it where you should cut it, and just hit it with your hand and just break it loose. It's not real hard there in those rib areas, and just you can break it and work it loose all the way around with a big old screwdriver, and then you can get it to the point where now, see, this thing will come off, and you can get it off, and you can access, there's the blower motor there. The only other thing is there's a screw that's screwed into the cover on the back side of the blower motor. You got to take that screw out. It's about right over here. I'm going to pull that screw out, and then I should be able to remove this cover. Alright, I pulled I took the blower motor, got the blower motor out, and on some videos I noticed what some people recommend taking it out in two pieces. You take your squirrel cage off first while the motor is still in the car. Once you take the squirrel cage off, then you can slide the motor out by these hoses. But when I did that, this squirrel cage was on here pretty hard. It's hard to get off. It's stuck, and I kind of hammered out, took a hammer and hammered out this centerpiece, or this rod, spline, or whatever it is, because it's kind of got splines on here, and it grips on that squirrel cage, and it was hard to get out, and I had to hammer it out. But I did take it out in two pieces. What I found, I think, is easier. You can see I've already got the new motor in here in one piece. This is the new motor and squirrel cage together. I did not have to separate them. All I did was take that one screw off these hoses. There's a bolt holding these hoses in, and you can actually lift them up like this. You can just pull them up. You don't have to disconnect them from. You don't have to disconnect them from the inlets. These are, I believe, these are my probably heater hoses here. You just pull it up out of the way. You can just lift it up like that. You pull it up out of the way, and it gives you room here. Once you do that, and kind of move your hoses up here, move them back from the top up and back. A little stiff, but that's what I did. Just moved it up and back, and it gave me room to just clear it and just drop the whole motor in and the squirrel cage attached. That way I didn't have to try to pull the squirrel cage off a brand new motor, because a lot of these don't come off really easy. They just they're kind of stuck there where they're pushed on pretty tight. So just taking that one screw out, right, the bolt out rather, allows me to move the hoses out of the way and drop it in. So you don't have to, if you don't want to separate this into two pieces and to get it in or out, you don't have to. Just move your hoses out of the way. That was the easiest thing for me. And actually, I believe I damaged this motor. Was probably good, because now the bearings is kind of hard to turn. So I could have damaged it trying to pound it out of the squirrel cage. So I just want to let you know, just move the, you can just take that one bolt out, move your heater hoses, and you can drop the entire assembly of the blower motor in. Okay, I got the new blower mounted in place there. Breather tube, make sure you put your breather tube back on. Keeps the, for air to get to the motor, to get to the blower motor. You only need to pull out one of these plugs, leave the other plug in place. Put your breather tube, when you pull the other plug out and put the breather tube in. Just leave your cutout off. You don't need to put the cutout back there. And that's, just throw that old cutout away, the part you cut out. Now, I have fixed the this connector. Where it burned right here, where it got hot. I'm going to take a Dremel cut tool and just cut this thing off and try to put a new connector on this wire, and just connect this wire back to the resistor pack separately. I'll show it to you when I get started on this thing. Okay, what I've done to fix this burn connector is I just took a C-clamp, just clamped it, connected to the frame of the front frame of the van. I'm going to cut it. So I'm just going to take I got a Dremel tool, Dremel type tool. It's just one of these rotary cutting tools. It's just a cargo tool, rotary tool. I just got it from Harbor Freight or any of your hardware places. Take a magic marker. What I'm going to do is right here where I'm marking, I'm just going to cut straight, that line, I'm just going to cut straight down that on each side of this connector. That Dremel tool, essentially cutting this piece off here, essentially cutting the outside piece off, and I'll be able to free this burn connector, because it's all burned and puffed up in there and burned and heated, and I'm not going to be able to pull that wire out here without damaging this thing. So I'm just going to cut it on both sides. Okay, I wasn't able to cut it while holding the camera, so I couldn't video this thing and cut at the same time, so I had to sit my phone down. But you can see where I cut it here on both sides, and I was able to get the connector out. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm probably not going to be able to film this either, but I'm going to cut this connector off, put a new connector on here. I might be able to use the same connector. As I'm looking at it, it's not really that bad, just a little darkened, but I mean, I can use that. That's not bad. The plastic was damaged, so I'm just going to cut this damaged piece off here, and I can still use this thing and slide it back on. and use the same connector, just won't be in the housing piece. Let's give it a shot. Okay, I've cut the burnt part off in that part that was housing this other connector here. So using my rotary tool, I was able to get a pretty decent cut, and I can still use this connector. And in case you're asking yourself, why didn't he just buy a new connector? Well, these connectors run about 30 bucks online, and they already have the wires on them. And these wires go into went all the way down to this bundle with the other wires, and runs all through the vehicle through the I can't remember what you call it, but the wiring harness. Yeah, it runs into the harness, and you have to cut all these wires out because this connector already comes with wires already with the connectors in it, and probably a foot of wire coming out of here of these wires. You got to cut them and then either solder them all or crimp them all together again. So I just said I don't want to do all that, and this is kind of the poor man's way of doing it. I can still use the same connector, don't have to spend any money. And this is the other connector I pulled out. I just stuck these are one of those vacuum pipe replacement hoses. I just stuck over this connector just to protect it from shorting out, because if it touches metal. This thing is hot, and I guess it just stays hot because my key is not on, but it's hot, and it sparked up when I hit the frame. So I just put this little these are vacuum plugs, vacuum line plugs, and I just stuck a little vacuum line plug over to keep it from shorting out. And when I get when I put it back together and plug it up, I'll show you how it looks. Okay, this is the resistor pack here. This is the wire that plugs into the blower, plus and minus, and that's your relay. I'm trying to hold the camera and do all this one hand. Here's your relay, and this is where that connector plugs in here. And you can see this connector here on the end if you can see it. I don't know if you can or not, and I can't see it too good in the sunshine. Well, it's melted, the connector part, but the wire is okay. I've tested the relay. The relay is okay, and you have to test that. I don't want to get into that, but that's where you're going to have to plug battery voltage across these pins to control the relay, and then you can hear it click when you apply voltage. If it clicks, and then if you get a good reading on your ohm meter, then it's good. But you can kind of see where this one's melted the wire a little bit. That's where I'm going to put that wire back. I put a new motor in there. Hopefully it won't draw as much current as the old motor did. So, I didn't see much difference. Both of them read over 10 amps on current draw, but my amp meter stops at 10 amps, so it went to overflow. So I don't know how many amps it is exactly, but I know it's more than 10. So I just put a new motor in there just in case so the bearings are good bearings and everything is not drawing a lot of current. And I'll go ahead and plug this thing in and show you how I'm just going to show you where I've dressed the connection a little better too. It's dressed here with the blue piece back in place. Got the blue piece back in place, and I put a wire tie around there just to hold it, and everything's in place there, even with the orange one is on that blue piece there. Just kind of dressed. This is plugged back into the fan here also. And there's the connector. Just need to button it back up. Let's go test it, and should be able to fire it up, and blower should be working. Let's go check it. Turn the key on, ignition on. Settings on low. And I just got it on face vent here, and it's working. It's low is working. Low, medium. I guess that's high, medium. That works. And high, if you can hear it. It's working. Working good. All that's left to do now is just button it all back up. That's it. It just plugs back in. Just plug this back into the place where it goes in. Screw them in. There's your fix. And then put the overflow, coolant overflow, and the windshield washer reservoirs back into place here and here. And put the tubes back on it. That's easy. That's it. Save a little money there on that fix.